StrayAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get to use those for personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, especially you, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy. There's a hardcover book and a whole bunch of other books. And this masterclass is daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, as I told you we'd be talking about this very soon, is the power, the value, and the power of perception, and why you should focus on controlling public opinion. Now, I told you that this masterclass was coming, and when I talk about public opinion, I don't mean that you have to go and build a brand on the internet, or you need to become an influencer, that you need to acquire a certain level of fame. When I say public, I'm talking about your public, the public as it relates to you. So your public could be the whole world if you're that known. Your public could be your coworkers, it could be your household, it could be the industry that you work in, it could be the building that you live in. Whatever your public happens to be, we're talking today about the value and power of the perception of that public, whatever that public is, and the opinion that that public has of you. You should pay attention to that, and you should want to control that. Whatever that public happens to be, make sure you are putting some time into, some focus into what that public thinks of you. And I'm going to explain why that actually matters. Now, we talked about opinions and how people see you several times here on the show. I want to refer you to a few episodes. Masterclass number 1305, not all opinions are created equally. Masterclass number 971, the 95% rule, and dealing with, how you use it to deal with public opinion. Talked about in masterclass number 435, why you should care about rankings, top lists, the top 10, top 5 lists, and subjective opinions of other people. In masterclass number 400, authority means you stop asking for opinions so often and you actually start giving them out. And we talked about opinions in several other masterclasses, and I'm not going to list them all here. I'll tell you one more, masterclass number 1407, when I told you how subjective opinions matter more than facts these days. So if you did not hear that or any of those other masterclasses that I just referred to, or if you did, but you don't remember everything that I talked about in those, which you probably don't, I suggest you refer yourself back to those masterclasses. If you are a game group member, you got access at Work on Your Game University. You have access to all of those materials, so make sure you save them to your device inside of the membership exclusive app, so you have them right there on your phone. Even if you get on a plane or you go somewhere with no connection, you got them downloaded to your device. You can listen to them at any time. Again, that's at workonyourgameu.com. Any of you who is not a game group member, or you don't even know what that is, go to workonyourgameu.com and listen to me right now. You get all the details, how you can get free access to every masterclass that has ever existed in the history of this show. So let's get the definition of perception here before we get into our points, because the topic is the value and power of perception. Perception means the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. So today's topic, as we go into point number 1, is the value and power of perception and why you should care about public opinion. Point number 1, perception is reality, ladies and gentlemen. Perception feeds reputation. How people feel about you becomes their reality of you. And if you notice enough people feeling a certain way about you, you're going to either, first of all, you're going to have to recognize this is the way that people feel, and it may eventually become your reality. Now, you may be wondering, well, damn, if everybody has a certain perception of me and that becomes my reality, then the whole world could basically control what my reality is. No, actually, it's the exact opposite. The way that you present yourself to the world, because you control the way that you present yourself, nobody else can control that but you. The way you present yourself to others becomes the perception that they have of you, because they're not going to dig so deep into you to really figure out if you're showing them what's true and what's not, because most people are focused on themselves. So whatever you show them, they're going to take that and accept it as who you actually are. So their perception is going to be based on what you give them. Now, if enough people get that perception from you, because you're outside showing yourself, putting yourself out there boldly and authentically, so people pick up that perception that you have provided for them, they're going to start seeing you the exact way that you have presented yourself to them, a way that you have personally crafted. Now, all of their perceptions is their reality of you, which is exactly what you wanted it to be. And now, because you notice everyone else is buying into the reality that you have presented to them, now you will feel more emboldened in that reality, and maybe you'll take it a step further. Maybe realizing this power, you will maybe make it even bigger and bolder than it was before. Because maybe the first time you only did a little test of it because you weren't sure that what Dre said on the Work on Your Game show was actually true. But when you go find out that this is true, then maybe you'll do it all the way next time. I suggest you do it all the way the first time, because what I'm telling you is going to be true. But you can find out for yourself if you wish. The only thing you have to lose is time. You run out of time, game's over. All that being said, perception being reality, it feeds your reputation being what other people think about you. And understand that your reputation precedes you. You've heard all of these things before, right? You've heard that perception is reality. You've heard that your reputation precedes you. You've heard these things many times because they're true. In my favorite book, my favorite book, 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, he has a chapter that says so much depends on reputation. So guard it with your life. Now, some of you have heard some things about reputation where people say, well, reputation is just what people think about you, but your character is who you actually are as a person. I completely understand that, and you know what? I agree with it. That is true. Your character is who you truly are, and your reputation is just what other people think about you. Here's the thing, though. That saying is sometimes shared as if to mean comparatively, that reputation doesn't mean as much because it's only what other people think about you, and what other people think about you doesn't always matter. Listen, what other people think about you does matter, because in life, if you're doing anything that is social, anything that involves other human beings, wouldn't it matter what they think about you? I think it does. If I have this show, I'm not putting this show out to impress myself. I don't put this show out so I can listen to it, even though I do listen back to my own episodes. I don't put this out for me because I can have these conversations with myself, and I don't need to be recording it. I don't need to buy the microphone. I don't need to have a camera. I don't need to pay the audio people. I don't need to do any of that if I'm just talking to myself. I can just talk to myself walking down the street, okay? The guy standing on the corner with nowhere to sleep tonight, he talks to himself all day. I could do that, all right? I don't record and put this out for me. I record and put this out for you. So if your perception of me, if my reputation amongst you and your other fellow listeners is not solid enough to get your attention and get you listening to the show, then there's no value in this. So what other people think about you, i.e. your reputation, or AKA your reputation, it absolutely does matter. Does your character matter as well? Yes, they both matter. So it's not either or, all right? You want both. And one thing that you'll notice if you listen to me enough is that some of these cliches that you may have heard in life, or that maybe somebody has told you, or these axioms that people have, seem to compare certain things. They say, well, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. We just talked about this not too long ago. When you understand, a lot of times it's both, okay? We don't have to pick and choose between two things. We want all of them, okay? When we talk about, is it nice to be important or more important to be nice? I told you in masterclass number 1565, be important now and be nice later. But I just told you a few days ago, there are ways to strategically use your nice list. That's in masterclass number 1597. So make sure, that was just 4 days ago. So make sure you take in both of those masterclasses so you can understand both sides of the equation and the value of both of them. You do not have to pick and choose, not only not here at Work on Your Game University, but also in life period. Do not allow these cliches and these sayings that you have grown up listening to. Don't allow them to have you believing that you have to pick and choose between one side or the other side. So when it comes to character and reputation, you want to be strong in both, okay? Be strong in character so that you can look yourself in the mirror at night and know that you're doing the things that you want to do and you are who you present yourself as. But also you want to be strong in reputation, because having other people have a positive perception of you will help you get a lot more done that you won't even have to do on your own. The path will be laid out for you because, as you've heard before and as you agree to, your reputation precedes you. So a lot depends on reputation. So you should pay a lot of attention to it. I've told you over and over again that how you see yourself is how the world will see you, as I've explained. However you project your self-image, other people will pick up on it and they will see it the way that you see it. It was said that the appearance of Napoleon Bonaparte, the French conqueror, the French general, at the head of his army, anytime that his army went to battle, if Napoleon showed up at the front of the army, that was equivalent to adding 40,000 soldiers to the army, just Napoleon's presence alone, simply because of his reputation on the battlefield. He had such a solid reputation for his cunning, for his strategic skills, for winning as often as he did. Just him showing up made it seem like his army was a lot bigger than it actually was, because everybody knew Napoleon's reputation. Now, had Napoleon been as good as he was, yet he didn't have that reputation, would he still have had the same success? Maybe. We'll never actually know. But one thing that I will put out there is that had he not had that reputation, a lot of his opponents, now not as spooked by the fact that they knew they were going against Napoleon, not having in their mind the boogeyman of, damn, this guy is so great, he's beaten everybody, he won the last 2 battles, he won the last 20 battles, he's probably gonna win this battle. Without having that in the back of their mind, would that opposing general have a little bit more confidence? Would they try some things that they may have hesitated on, knowing that they were going against the great Napoleon? Would they have prepared differently, knowing that they were going against some unknown rather than going against a guy who was known for beating everybody and outsmarting everyone? I think the situation may have been a little bit different, but you tell me. Anyway, let's move on to point number 2. Today's topic, again, is the value and power of perception. Point number 2, how people perceive you is, most of the time, the only thing they'll ever know about you. I mean, think about this. How many people in your life, I'm talking of the people that you know, you being the one doing the perceiving, how many people do you, or the people that you know, how many of them have you done really like deep analysis of, to like, let me really find out who this person is. Let me really dig deep and really find out what this person's about. Let me find out their true character. Let me separate their character from their personality, from their reputation, from their, the outward appearance of how they present themselves. Let me really, really dig deep into this individual. How many people in your life have you done that with? You can probably count them on your fingers, right? Assuming that you have 2 hands and 10 fingers, you probably don't even need both hands. Now, most other people in life are probably have a similar equation. I'm explaining that to explain this. People do not look that deep into most of the people that they come across. We look at what we see, we look at what we can read, what we hear about those individuals, and we pretty much just leave it at that. That's pretty much how we see that individual. When they show us something different, then we may change our thoughts a little bit. They do something or say something different, write something different, record something different. Maybe we'll change it a little bit based off of that. But we're not going in doing like a deep, let me just do a deep dive and find out everything I can about this one individual and just learn everything about the inner workings of their minds. We ain't got time for all that. All right, we need more of that time to focus on ourselves. All right, we ain't really worried about anybody else, right? So it makes sense, since how people perceive you is mostly all they'll ever know about you. It makes sense that you should control that perception, right? Isn't that just a good investment that you should make? We don't do deep analysis of the people that we meet or know. We just go off of our senses, our sense of seeing, sight, hearing, feeling, touching, tasting, and smelling. And we make decisions about other people quickly. Some people's perception of you will be the window tint of everything they see and hear about you. What I mean by that, when I say the window tint, meaning whatever is on the surface, whatever people are saying. If you apply for a job, for example, or you go, let's say you apply for a job, the first thing people will look at, they're gonna look at your resume or whatever it is you had to send in for the job application. Then what are they gonna do? We know what everybody does. They're gonna go Google you, and whatever comes up on that first page is going to make a strong first impression of them. Now, if they're really diligent, they may go to page 2, page 3, maybe even deeper, depending on how many results there are that Google is presenting. Maybe they'll see something on the first page and have a certain impression, then they'll dig deeper and they say, oh, well, maybe that first thing I saw isn't really what it is. But a lot of people, they're just gonna look at that window tint, whatever's on the surface about you, whatever other people are saying about you, whatever you are saying about you, and that's pretty much all they're gonna go off of. When you're, any of you who's in the field, in the dating world, when you meet a new person and you find out their name, what do? As soon as you get you get home from that first date or that first, Starbucks meeting or whatever they're doing after the COVID situation, if you can't date anybody, I wonder what people are doing in terms of dating. But anyway, whatever that is, you go Google that person, right? Once you find out their name, you go Google them and you see what you can find out. You're gonna look at the surface level presentation of this individual, much of which, especially in today's world, much of which they are the ones who put it out there. The girl that you're looking up or the guy that you're looking up, most of the things you see about them are things that they have chosen to put out there to the world, whether that's their blog, their Facebook page, the pictures that they post, their YouTube channel, whatever it is, they have put these things out there and they are controlling their perception, your perception of them based on the way they present themselves. Now, some people are doing this purposefully. They're thinking about it strategically as they're doing it. And other people, it just happens to happen that way, but not because they're trying to build a strategy. There's a guy that I know of. I don't even know this guy like that, but I had posted something about him had come up, and I posted it on my blog like years ago. But this guy, for whatever reason, he doesn't post many things on his blog about himself. But because since he doesn't post many things about himself, when people Google this guy, apparently he's single, he's out there dating a lot, this man. Because he's out there dating a lot, girls look him up when they have reached out to me because they see this article that I posted from him from years ago, and they say, well, I noticed some inconsistencies in how he was talking about himself and things like that, so I just Googled him, and then your piece came up, and this is an article that I posted in like 2009. I've never updated anything like that, and I just copy and pasted it from another source. But for whatever reason, this thing keeps coming up about him because for whatever reason, he has not controlled the public perception of himself. I don't know why, and again, I don't know the guy well enough to ask him, but it keeps happening because I keep getting these comments and emails from random females who are asking about this guy, and I'm like, I don't actually know this guy. I just posted that one thing in 2009, but it keeps coming up. But anyway, the point that I'm making here, we're still on point number 2. The topic today, again, is the value and the power of perception. Many people will form opinions over you that will gradually or quickly harden into beliefs and dogma that they will never change when it comes to you. I addressed this in masterclass number 734, the topic being keeping your opinions flexible. I want to let you know something. Even though I told you about keeping your opinions flexible in masterclass 734, unfortunately, out of the 8 billion people in the world, I would estimate that at least 7 billion of them, or let's say 6.5 if we want to be generous, they're not aware of the work on your game philosophy. So you must adjust accordingly, knowing that most people do not change their opinions once they form them, and you got to control the first one they come up with, because once they come up with it, that's pretty much how they're going to feel about you. Even if you do things that go completely against that reputation, they're just going to be shocked because they're like, well, the first impression they had of you, they're going to stick to that forever. That's just part of our wiring as human beings. You do the same thing. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the value and the power of perception and why you should aim to control public opinion. Now, there are sayings out there that I've already laid out here. Sayings like reputation is just what people think about you, character is who you truly are, what people think about you doesn't really matter, etc., etc. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to be in the game, any game, as I talked about in masterclass number 13, 14, learning to play the game and be a hustler, you would be wise to make efforts of controlling any perception that there is of you. Any industry you want to get in, you should control what that perception is, because that perception will determine how people feel about you, what they think about you, what they say about you. It can control whether you get your next job or opportunity, your next contract or not. What will happen if you happen to get in trouble or you do something that wasn't quite right? Your reputation can either get you out of it or it can get you deeper into it. Can we agree? A person with a strong reputation can do some questionable shit and get away with it as if nothing ever happened because their reputation was strong enough before the questionable thing occurred. And the person with a very weak reputation or no reputation, they do something that's questionable, they could be buried and destroyed and never be heard from again simply because their reputation was not strong enough to fight through whatever that situation was that they were handed. All right, this is all part of the game, ladies and gentlemen, that you need to accept first of all and then implement accordingly second of all. So you'll be wise to control all perceptions about you, because a perception will exist of you whether you do something about it or not. So you might as well put some time into shaping it to your liking. Even if you're an individual who's quote unquote not into the politics and the image stuff and all that, all those things that people talk about, or everything that I'm talking about here today, listen, alter your perception to show it. All right, you don't care about image, you don't care what people think about you, then what you should do is alter your perception and image to show people that you don't care what they think about you. All right, so even not being in the game is being in the game. Okay, it's all part of the game, ladies and gentlemen. That's why the show is called Work on Your Game. All of this is part of the game, and the game must be played or the game will play you. Point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is the value and the power of perception and why you should take pains to control any perceptions about you. Point number 4, let me give you a pro tip for perception, okay? Listen very closely. Write this one down. Borrow someone else's. Yes, borrow someone else's perception if you're not sure where to begin with yours. The law of association states that you become the company you keep, right? It doesn't matter how many people. 5 people, 10 people, 2 people, 300 people. You become the people you hang around. 50 Cent told the story in his book, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter, how Jay-Z, when he had his Rockefeller company, he had a whole bunch of artists who were from the city of Philadelphia, my hometown, and he was trying to make those artists big artists. He invested a lot of time and a lot of energy into trying to make these guys bigger artists, which would, of course, since Jay-Z was one of the owners of his Rockefeller company, would have made Jay-Z more money. And by association, Jay-Z would have looked like a star maker. Look at these star artists that I recruited, got them on my label. They're stars now. They're making money. I'm making money. Everybody wins. It would have been a great win-win situation for Jay-Z. The problem was those Philadelphia artists didn't become the stars that Jay-Z wanted them to become. So what Jay-Z did next, and this is 50 Cent narrating this whole thing, he moved on to become president of Def Jam Records. And a lot of people wondered why Jay-Z became president of Def Jam Records. He already owned the company. Why would he take a job working for Def Jam? What is Jay-Z going to get out of that? I don't think it was the money. It wasn't that he needed to prove he could be an executive. He was already doing those things. Why would he take this job? And over the long run, 50 Cent explained, what Jay-Z was actually doing was finding him some new people, new artists with whom to associate himself. When he went to Def Jam, he got connected with a couple of up-and-coming artists, one of them named Kanye West, another one, well, Kanye was technically on Rockefeller at the time, but then he went to Def Jam with Jay-Z. And then another up-and-coming artist by the name of Rihanna, another one by the name of Neo. These are all artists who were on Def Jam at the time when Jay-Z was the president of the company, and Jay-Z got his name associated with these people, and it ended up working. When those artists became stars, Rihanna and Kanye became superstars, they still looked at Jay-Z as the boss, as the big homie, as the guy who helps them close deals and get opportunities. And he was able to improve the perception of Jay-Z, not from making more songs and being a star artist, even though he still did that, but from the fact that he associated himself with other stars who were on their way up and were brand new people, as opposed to Jay-Z, who had been around for a while. And I'm not saying, also, another thing you can say about Jay-Z is he married Beyonce, who's a pretty big damn star in the R&B world and just in pop culture, period. Now, I'm not saying that Jay-Z married Beyonce as a business move, but we can say it did help his business. It did help the perception of Jay-Z in the world to be associated with another star just as big, if not bigger. She's actually probably bigger than Jay-Z. So if someone has a strong reputation and you don't, or even if you do, align yourself with that individual. Work with them in some way, make friends with them, make enemies with them even if you want to. Because if people have to mention you when they mention that person, you make the perception of them become the perception of you, whatever it happens to be. So if you're a nobody in the room, why don't you go and get associated with the biggest person in the room? And you can get associated through being their best friend. You get associated through being their enemy. You can get associated through getting them to notice you and pay attention to you and give you energy in whatever way, shape, or form. This is just a way that you can borrow another person's perception. So that's what I mean here in point number 4. Borrow another person's perception by associating your name with their name in any way possible. Speaking to 50 Cent, he's a guy who did this very well when he was coming up in the rap game. He would be in conflicts with artists, or particularly one artist, Ja Rule. He got in conflicts with Ja when Ja was bigger than 50, and that got 50 some attention. And then when 50 leveraged that attention to make himself bigger than Ja, and then he stopped talking about Ja, and then everything else became history. You can read about that story on your own time. Let's recap today's class, which is the value and the power of perception and why you should aim to control public opinion. The definition of perception is the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. Let's talk about how to control it. Number 1, perception is reality. It feeds reputation, and your reputation precedes you. The 48 Laws of Power, Robert Greene has a chapter that says, so much depends on reputation, so guard it with your life. I told you over and over again that how people see you is how the world will see you, and how you see you is how the world will see you, because you project your own self-image outwardly and people pick up on it. So control it. Number 2, how people see you is most of the time the only thing that they will ever know about you. I mean, their surface level perception of you is the only thing they'll ever know about you, because nobody digs that deep on most of the people that they meet, and you don't do it either. We don't have time for that. We are more focused on ourselves. So another person's perception of you is going to be all they see and hear about you. So you will be smart to control that first impression that people get of you, because most people do not follow what I told you in masterclass number 734, which is keep all your opinions and perceptions flexible. Most people are not capable of that, and most people aren't willing to even do it. It breaks their brain to even consider it. So you should, again, you keep your opinions flexible, but understand that most other people don't. So control their perception of you from the beginning. Point number 3. There are sayings out there that reputation is just what they think about you, character is who you truly are, what other people think about you doesn't matter, etc., etc. Listen, If you're going to be in the game, you'll be wise to make efforts of controlling what people think about you. Even if you believe those sayings, you should still control them, because what other people think about you will control what they do and what they don't do, what they say and what they don't say to and about you. And if you're in the game, you should control as many aspects of the game as you possibly can. And not being in the game, if you don't care about the game, not being in the game is part of the game. Point number 4, a pro tip for perception: borrow another person's perception. Jay-Z was at Rockefeller with his own company. He was trying to groom some artists to become stars. Didn't work. So he went to Def Jam and he found some other artists to groom. He groomed Kanye while at Def Jam. He groomed Rihanna while at Def Jam. So when they became stars, a little bit of their star brushed off on him, because he was looked at as the big homie, the boss who would help put these people on, even though technically he wasn't the owner of the company that they came up under. But the perception is not the reality. The perception of it became the reality, and Jay-Z now is looked at as this big business mogul who is associated with all these big name people, even though he was not technically the person who put any of those people on in the first place. So if people have to mention you when they mention other people, at least make sure those other people are people of prominence who can make you look better than you may actually be. But if that's their perception, then maybe you are that good. Work on your game. Dre all day.